Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome to the circus.
They'll hand it to him off the left side. Looking and pay dirt. Ramir Johnson, the local boy, the Harlem native, punches it in for Nebraska, and they strike first.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher. Set in the middle, Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Call it, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Grofaugh's there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Another 3-2 forthcoming from LaRue to Ball. Here it is. Jordy swings and drives this one. Left center and deep. She did it again. Gone. Home run, Jordy Ball. Her fourth home run of the weekend. 1-0 Huskers.
Jordy Ball, 4 home runs in the tournament, 16 total bases. Well, 17 after the hit after that. I didn't listen after that because I was preparing for this show, but she was phenomenal. She gets the win on the mound as well.
She has 12 plate appearances on the weekend. She's 5 for 5 with a single and 4 home runs and 7 walks.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, replaying it. There you go.
Jordy swings and drives this one. Left center and deep. She did it again. Gone. Home run, Jordy Ball. Her fourth.
And then Anna Cusack followed that with a home run.
Yeah.
So she was great in the circle. Didn't have to pitch too much. Did she finish the game?
Jordy did, yeah.
Yeah, she did. So Nebraska wins it 8-0. Jordy improves to 25-6 on the year, 23 home runs, which is a program record. And Anna Cusack, not far behind. She has 21 home runs. So it'll be interesting to see if this goes to the College World Series, who wins that battle between the 2 home run hitters for Nebraska. Nebraska as a program, I think, has 105 or 6.
Yeah, something like that.
4th best all time in the Big Ten history.
And Ohio State is one of the teams that is better than they have. They've got like 130.
Right. And they got beat today.
Yeah.
They got beat today.
That's who Nebraska would have played.
By the way, Nebraska didn't have to face the number 1 seed in that region, LSU, who was beaten by Southeast Louisiana twice. So they kind of skated through. I think they would have won that regional anyway.
At the end of the day, everybody said, all the experts, that the hands down toughest regional is LSU because of Jordy Ball in Nebraska. But they also mentioned Southeastern Louisiana with the way that they play small ball.
Yeah.
That you have to field cleanly against them.
Yeah, and Nebraska did.
Or have Jordy Ball
they just
strike
made
out.
it such a blowout that they didn't have to worry about small ball. You can't play small ball when you're down 8-0.
That's all they do though.
That. Yeah,
I mean, they don't hit homers,
but impressive. Nebraska now moves on to face Tennessee. I think the number 7 overall national seed. LSU, the only top national seed not to make it to the final in their region.
Yeah.
So impressive performance from Nebraska softball, number 19 in the country, and they move on to the super regional. I think the first time since 2019.
Nope. 2014.
2014. Okay.
They made last time they made it in 2013 and 2014.
Was that the year they made the College World Series as well?
I believe they did one of those years.
Yeah, I know they did either in 2013 or 2014. We'll get it all figured out with Nate Rohr, the voice of Nebraska softball, who's there in Baton Rouge. He's trying to figure out if a shower is available, where they're going to shower after the game. He's going to get one of those and then call us with a post-game report and talk about probably the biggest story in Husker athletics right now. Nebraska softball just playing out of their minds and hitting just bombs every time they step to the plate. It feels like that'll be fun. Steve Sipple of Husker Online will join us. He did an interview. He and Sean Callahan talked to Matt Rule. Big get this time of year. Kind of a state of the program type of interview with Matt Rule. He talks about players leaving and players coming into the portal, going into the portal, and what's going to happen with this House decision. Nebraska now will not have to worry about a hard cap on the 105, at least for this year. It looks like the players that were already here are going to be grandfathered in, at least for this year for Nebraska football. We'll talk a little bit about that, maybe in hour number 2. We're so loaded with guests. I don't know where we're really going today. Lance Harvell will join us at the top of the 6 o'clock hour to talk Husker baseball. They've sealed the number 8 seed for the Big Ten tournament and over 500 for the first time this year at, I believe, 28 and 27 as they beat Purdue 2 out of 3. They've won now 5 straight series. It'd be nice for them to sweep a series. That loss on Friday night was a little tough, 5-4, the walk-off. But other than that, Nebraska baseball is playing much better, and they're just winning series after series. That's good. They make the Big Ten tournament. Kind of a different format this year.
It is the most insanely incompetent, dumbest tournament format ever.
So what do you really think, Mike? Do you like it?
I literally let me slap the person that said this is a good idea.
They're going to play on Tuesday, and then they won't play again until Friday.
Yeah, and the loser of Nebraska-Michigan State on Tuesday has no chance of advancing. But they have to sit around for 3 days to play another game that is completely meaningless.
Yeah, I don't understand the pod system. If they win it, you're probably loving the system. If they win that first game,
there's no one this is dumb. It's so stupid.
Yeah, I like the idea that if you lose your first game, you have to come back through the loser's bracket. I mean, and there are teams that have done it. Very few. Nebraska's one. Nebraska did it going through the loser's bracket. And the great thing about it, sure, maybe they're worried about arms, teams throwing out guys, pitching on no days rest or,
it's
pitching.
College baseball's been.
That's
forever.
I think that's what makes it great, that you have to come back and maybe there's not a lot of arms and, you have to throw a guy that you haven't thrown all year and he's got to be a hero. That's what makes postseason great. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. Bottom line, if you're the 5 through the 12 seed, you must win 2 games to have a chance. If you're the 1 through 4 seed, you can lose. And as long as the team that beat you lost their other game, you're in.
I guess they're rewarding.
If they would do run differential is the only way. It wouldn't be the dumbest format ever. It would still be really stupid.
They're rewarding teams that had a good regular season.
They're punishing the teams that weren't great far more than they're rewarding the ones that were great.
Probably. I haven't done an in-depth dive on this format. I don't like it though. I can tell you I don't like it.
Bottom line, if you're the 5 through 12 seed and you lose your first game, you have 0 chance to advance.
But
0.
the good news is, you got Timberman out there and you're playing the 12 seed, right? You're playing Michigan State. You probably should win that first game.
You should.
And if you lost it anyway, there's very little chance, even under the old format, that you were going to come back
and win 5 in a row and win a Big Ten title like they did last year.
With fewer teams. There weren't teams like USC and UCLA and Washington and Oregon.
I'm just saying, though.
And the way, those are the 4 best teams in the league this year.
Iowa.
Well, not according to RPI. Iowa's 3rd, I think, and USC's like 4th or 5th. I have it right here. But their RPI, Iowa's RPI is a disaster. It's 73. They have to win, I think, the Big Ten tournament for them to make the postseason.
Possible. They were 21-9 in the Big Ten, so
yeah, but they didn't
32-20 overall. They didn't play anybody in the non-con. Then
their RPI is 73. But Oregon, UCLA, USC, Washington, probably not Washington, but those teams for sure. Oregon and UCLA are in because I think I read where Oregon's RPI is 13 and UCLA's 16, or maybe it's the reverse, but they're good. I think both those teams are good for the NCAA tournament. I hope what these 4 teams do is make the Big Ten better in baseball, make them care. Now, UCLA hasn't been to the postseason. Well, they've been to the postseason the last couple of years, but they haven't been to the College World Series for a while. I think the last of the Pac-12 schools to make the College World Series was Washington in 2018. I know USC, it's been a while, and Oregon hasn't been there since 1954, even though they've had a good baseball program. They haven't been to the College World Series.
Meanwhile, Oregon State has got national title after national title.
Yeah, Oregon State's really good, but they didn't bring those guys from the Pac-12.
I know.
Maybe they should have, just for
baseball.
I do think there's a chance that those teams, could lift all ships in the Big Ten. I'm hoping that maybe those teams will I thought Nebraska might do that a little bit, make the rest of the league care about baseball. And you did see upgrades in facilities. You also had, Coach Anderson, who's since retired at Minnesota, said, why don't we just do our own league? Remember when he was talking about that years ago? Yeah. Why don't we just break away from the NCAA and do our own league? We'll never compete with the big boys, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12. That was ridiculous. I hated that. And I think Darren Erstad didn't like it either.
Yeah.
And Nebraska has been good, but they haven't been as good as they should have been in the Big Ten. And maybe it's because the league hasn't cared enough about baseball. Maybe they'll start caring a little more with some good baseball programs in it. I'm hoping.
Well, bottom line, you got to get players. I mean, and you and I talked about it last week. Nebraska hasn't been able to keep talent that's in the state to play for Nebraska.
Will this allow you to recruit LA with USC and UCLA there?
But do you have enough money
we always
to pay
thought
them?
that was the advantage of being in the Big 12, right? You could recruit Texas.
Yeah.
And Nebraska got some really good baseball players from Texas.
Yep.
And maybe that was the falling off a little bit. That they're just not getting as many really good baseball players from Texas like they used to.
Yeah, financially, the Big Ten has been a coup and a windfall for the University of Nebraska from an athletic standpoint. Nebraska was built for the Big 12. I mean, every athletic team was built for the Big 12, and it's taken over a decade, and they're still trying to figure it out.
Let's get to the first pitch with Mike Melby.
Now, the first pitch on Husker Rewind.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout. The night belongs to 33.
The day and the weekend belonged to, if you read our ticker across the bottom of the screen, Jordy Ball is the best college softball player of all time. And her first pitch today was a strike. I think her last one was a strike. And everything in between was nothing short of spectacular. She winds up striking out 10 today, picks up her 25th win of the year, hits another home run. She has 4 in the regional, which gives her 23 for the season, which is a new single-season Nebraska record. Nebraska knocked off UConn 10-2 on Friday, 14-2 over Southeastern Louisiana last night, and then an 8-0 shutout win over Southeastern Louisiana. Jordy Ball pitched all 6 innings, gave up 1 hit, and as I mentioned, struck out 10. They will play Tennessee, the number 7 overall seed, in the Super Regionals in Knoxville next weekend. Nebraska men's baseball is the 8 seed in the Big Ten tournament. They will take on Michigan State in the dumbest format in the history of baseball tournaments.
So you really don't like it?
It's
is
so
everybody
stupid.
going? Is everybody else going to? This is a thing throughout college baseball.
I don't know. I think there's just one moron at the Big Ten conference that thought this was a good idea. And somebody said okay.
I don't like it. I played double. What was wrong with the old format?
Absolutely nothing. So bottom line is, if Oregon, UCLA, Iowa, or USC win 1 game, they are guaranteed a spot in the finals.
But
it's that simple.
It doesn't have to be the first game. I mean,
no, because if Nebraska beats Michigan State, right?
Yeah.
And Oregon winds up losing to Michigan State, and then Nebraska beats Oregon. You have 3 teams at 1-1, and the higher seeded team goes. So all the first 4 have to do is win one game. And none of the bottom 8 can lose a game if they want to get to the the semifinals, into the final 4.
I hope an 8 through 12 seed wins.
I do too.
That would be fantastic.
As a matter of fact, I hope none of the top 4 seeds make it. That would just be funny. It's not going to happen,
but if you do win your first game, then what is the road to the championship?
For anybody 5 through 12,
yeah,
you must win your second game. Otherwise, you have 0 chance unless.
So you must win your first 2 games.
Well, yeah, you're only playing 2. The only way, if you go 1-1, that you were to get into the final 4 of the Big Ten tournament.
I'm confused just hearing about
is if the 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed that's in your pool goes 0-2, and you're the higher seed.
Yeah. So basically, you need to win your first 2 games. Nebraska.
You have to win your first 2 to get to the final.
They'll play Michigan State, and then on Friday, Oregon, right?
Yep. And then if they win both, the only way is if they win both.
See, it's ridiculous that you know who your second round opponent is.
Yeah.
It should be. I guess it's not. I mean, a lot of the best teams usually in these tournaments would get a bye in the first round. I get that, and that's deserved. But the fact that you win one game and you're in the that's just not earning anything.
Like I said, anybody in the top 4, the top 4 seeds, Oregon, UCLA, Iowa, USC, if they win one of their 2 pool games, they are in the finals. There is no way around it.
Okay, well, we'll ask Lance Harvell what he thinks about this mess. Mike Melby obviously hates it.
I hate it. Sorry. Let's go to quick IndyCar news. A couple of guys got disqualified, and it's really kind of interesting. I got to go back and find the story on it. Bottom line is, I believe it was Joseph Newgarden and Will Power of Team Penske were disqualified from final 12 or top 12 qualifying. So they're going to start wherever they wound up qualifying. They won't be on the front row because their body panels did not conform to the proper form after the post qualifying inspection.
You're definitely the racing expert on this show. I know nothing about racing.
Let's see. I'm trying to go through and come up with some other fun stuff for this, but it's mainly Nebraska baseball and softball is what we're talking about.
Those are really the only 2 sports left, right, for the summer.
Yeah. So,
and we, by the way, are done after this show for the summer.
Yeah. We're gonna take, just like we did last year. We'll wind up taking off a couple. Yeah, I don't even know what's gonna be, like 8-10 weeks. Something like that. You're back early in August. I'm back probably that.
I'll be back the first week of August.
Yeah, and I'll be back sometime. Probably after Labor Day, with my schedule and some vacations and some work trips that are out there. So,
but that won't stop us from having a big show today. We've got Stephen M. Sipple of Husker Online. As we mentioned, he and Sean Callahan interviewed Matt Rule. Some interesting stuff came out of that. We'll talk to Steve about it. And I saved some of the clips from Matt Rule as well. Lance Harvell at 6:00, Nebraska baseball assistant. As we just mentioned, the tournament that Mike Melby hates. Nebraska will be an 8 seed and take Michigan State on in the first round.
And we talked about the last time Nebraska softball was in a super regional. It was 2014. The year prior was the last time they were in the College World Series.
I remember not being a softball fan at all at that time and just randomly turning on ESPN. And Nebraska was in that game. It was a really good game. I don't even remember who they played at that time, but it was a really good game. And I ended up, because Nebraska lost, and I was really angry about a game that I didn't even know was on. I was like, wait a minute. You didn't even know this game was on, and now you're angry about it. But that's how addictive it became. And I think, actually, the Women's College World Series is very good. I think it's better than you think it is. I think it's good television, and I hope Nebraska makes it. If they win the Super Regional, obviously they're back in the College World Series.
Last time they were at the CWS down in Bricktown Ballpark down in Oklahoma City, they lost to Washington 4-3 in the first game, and then in the losers bracket they lost to Florida 9-8.
Okay, there you go. Jim White will also join us, Nebraska Hall of Fame golfer, and we're hoping to get Nate Rohr on the show. Of course, the voice of Nebraska softball. He is the sports director of KLIN, and he's on Jack and Friends every morning right here. Scotty Scheffler, we're going to talk golf with Jim White. Scotty Scheffler now leading the PGA. He's pretty much led from the start. I don't think he led after day one, but he's led ever since day two. Scotty Scheffler, 12 under par. JT Poston is the next closest at 7 under. You've got Harris English, Bryson DeChambeau, 6 under. John Rahm, who was making a run for a while, about an hour ago, it was 10-9. Scheffler was at 10 under and Rahm at 9 under. And I thought, here we go. This is going to be great. It's going to be a great finish. And now it looks like the world's number one is going to just blow everybody out. A few weeks ago, he won the Byron Nelson. They've changed the name of it, but it's the Byron Nelson Classic. He's from Texas, and he shot 31 under par, which is the lowest score. It's actually tied with Justin Thomas, I believe, 31 under for the lowest score of all time on the PGA Tour. That guy is not only the world's number one, he's just so dominant. I know Rory's number 2, but Rory feels like a distant number 2. I know he won the Masters, but every week that Scotty tees it up, he's top 10. He's an ATM machine. He's an absolutely brilliant golfer. There's no weakness to his game. He's the best iron player I've ever seen. And as Tiger said, when he putts well, you can't beat him. When he putts well, just play. You're playing for second. And that's what it looks like this week at Quail Hollow at the PGA in South Carolina. We'll talk with Jim White. In the meantime, let's get ready for Stephen M. Sipple. Talk a little Husker football with Steve, maybe some baseball, whatever he wants to talk about. He's knowledgeable about all sports, Huskers. We'll do that coming up.
Tune in to Retirement Compass Radio Show with Stonebridge.
Times change, your life changes, your risk tolerance changes. And so that's really where working with a professional comes into play, is to say, how do I pull this together and make it work as part of a plan? How do I make it so I can sit back, relax, and enjoy the music?
Saturdays at 8 a.m. on KLIN.
Here's another broadcast house station you may like.
B107.3.
Your playlist for the workday or the weekend. We're interchangeable like that.
I just want to tell you guys how much I enjoy listening to this station and how much fun you guys bring to my morning and all day while I listen to you guys. Oh, it's the best.
B107.3, of course.
Efforting Stephen and Sipple. Sometimes you have to call guests before you have them on, but I tweeted out that we're having Stephen on, and I'm sure he'll call the studio line. Steve, if you're listening now, 402-479-1400 is the number, and we'll get you right on the air because you're our next guest. Wanted to talk to him because he talked with Sean Callahan. He talks to him all the time. They're both of Husker Online. He wrote about it as well. Can Nebraska be a big dog again? And I think this is Steve right now. Hi, Steve. How are you? Are you there? There he is. There he is. Stephen M. Sipple.
Yes.
Yes. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Is Mike with you?
Yeah, Mike is with me. We do a show. It's called Husker Rewind. We do it every Sunday from 5 to 7, and you're our first guest. So we're glad to have you. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Hey, I wanted to get you on because I know that you talked to Matt Rule, head coach of Nebraska. Great interview there. But you also wrote a column about Nebraska getting back to its old self. I think in the world of college football, you said no reason why Nebraska can't return to being big dog status. Why do you say that?
Oh, because the way the world's changed in college athletics. And I mean, I say it in part because Andy Staples says it. It's not. There's just no slam dunks here, but I mean, some of the things that were sort of, as Andy points out, impediments to Nebraska they're not as impeding anymore. You know, we used to talk about geography, right?
Right.
Probably doesn't matter much because you can overcome it with a big sum of money if you're pursuing a player.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, we used to have that, like Andy pointed out, the super team era, when it was Alabama and Georgia and Clemson would move in there, and there'd be a couple others, but that's sort of gone by the wayside too. I mean, Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State's always been in that conversation, but Michigan shot in there. There's Penn State has shot in there. Oregon's has shot up in there. Other teams have shot up in there. But Nebraska can be one too because of the way the landscape shifted. Nebraska's equipped. You know, they're equipped financially. They have, I would say right now, you know, the best football facility that houses a team. It's possible to have the best one in America. I haven't toured America, but there can't be 5 others that are better. There can't be right now. Now somebody will pass, maybe. And then, you know, you have the things we always talk about, the amazing fan support. You have alignment, particularly with Gannon, but I think that would extend to the president of Nebraska, the governor. So, yeah, it's all there. I mean, there's some things that are missing, and one thing that's really missing is extensive winning. You know, a period of extensive winning. That's got to happen probably.
Steve Sipple joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and text line. Sip, along the lines of the money that Nebraska has to spend, I think you alluded to it in that article as well. They have to spend the money that is the bigger dollars that they're going to spend and invest in the players correctly. Right. This is now talent evaluation has got to be spot on. And it's not only talent from a on the field, it's talent in the locker room. Are you a good locker room guy? You know, can you, are you not Shedeur Sanders type? You know, you don't need a cancer in the locker room either.
Oh my, yeah, that part is really, you're right. I mean, it almost becomes, you know, I don't know if it's more important, but it's still very important. Identifying the right type of guys, for sure. I mean, Indiana's the best example, right? I mean, Indiana's probably the best example I can come with off the top of my head of a coach who did that. He brought Signetti, brought those guys from James Madison over with him, and they fit. There's never a perfect. It's never perfect on a football team because there's so many personalities, there's so many people involved. But you can get as maybe you can get it pretty close. And oh yeah, I mean that talent identification, identifying the type of guys you want around in your program. Yeah, that it's paramount. I mean, it's just because you have the money, it doesn't guarantee you anything. I think I use the example of the Dallas Cowboys. They just somehow, it's elusive to them. They just can't. They can't get the right mix.
And the leadership at the top maybe
and
isn't always the best.
As a Cowboys fan, you are so right.
Yeah, he's a Cowboys fan. But, you know, they've gotten it right before. Maybe they can get it right again. I think one of the things you alluded to is culture and getting the right guys in the locker room. And I think Rohr, maybe for the first time in year number 3, thinks he's got that. He talked about walking around practices and, you know, Dana Holgerson's doing his thing and Eckler's doing his thing. And he feels like he's almost lonely that this team is doing it without the need for a lot of leadership from him. And that's a good thing, he thinks.
I think that could be a good thing. I can't figure Rohr out right now.
Why do you mean that? Why do you say that?
It's an interesting conversation I have in my brain. Well, for instance, when he was on Sports Nightly last week, he was never asked about a player or a position group, which is different. That's a different than what we're used to at Nebraska. It's just sort of when the head coach goes on after spring football, goes on the radio, it's usually almost like a position by position rundown. Now, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just that Jessica Cootie didn't want to ask those questions, or maybe it was probably a directive from the head coach. We're not going to do this. We're not going to just go position by position anymore. I can't figure out if he's doing that because he feels like he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to it's like a reporter that's sitting on a big story. You don't really want to tell anybody. I mean, you kind of want to keep it to yourself and then spring it on everybody. And I wonder if that's what he's doing with this team, or he's not that confident. I don't know. I mean, or maybe it's neither. Maybe it's just, we do this around here so much, this hype thing, and I'm not gonna participate in it. But and this wasn't just something that occurred on the radio last week. This was a theme during the spring. The coaches were very hesitant to single out players. There wasn't much praise. They didn't want to do that. So it's definitely been a theme. I just can't figure out what it is. Why? I can figure out what it is. I can't figure out why they're doing it.
That is kind of a departure, I guess. I didn't really recognize
I didn't know he was doing that either.
He mentioned Dillon and he mentioned Jacob Bowers, but there was not a whole lot of other guys that were brought, where normally it seems as though he's more than willing to talk about it. Interesting observation, Sip. Thanks for pointing it out.
Yeah.
Now you've got me curious.
If you listen to the interview, if you go back and listen to it, which I did this weekend, there wasn't any questions about individual players or individual positions. So, and I can't believe that was a coincidence. I have to think that was a directive. I don't know that. I bet it was.
I want to mention, you talked to Andy Staples this week, and I thought it was a good conversation as well. And one of the conversations that came up was, Nebraska getting to 8, 9, 10 wins, whatever the expectation is. But he said you got to first stop losing the UCLA type games, the games that you should win. If Nebraska wins all the games that they should win, what is your expectation for this team?
I mean, I'm just squarely on 8. I won't depart from 8. I think that 8 represents discernible progress. 8 regular season wins is important to make that distinction. 8 regular season wins, it should denote discernible progress. Now 9 would be nice. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to take that step, because I don't think many people will, because I think as a collective around here, fans, media, etc. I just think there's a sort of okay, they got to prove it now. And,
don't you think that almost Vegas knows that when they set it 7.5, they just know that Nebraska fans are going to jump on that at 8. I mean, because I 6.5 wouldn't be good. You'd easily pick that, right? But 7.5 feels like where Nebraska, you're always like, can they win 8 Can they win 8 games? That's the perfect number for Nebraska, 7.5.
I would venture to say it's the only number. You couldn't 6.5. Like you said, it just becomes such a no-brainer. 8.5. I just don't think people would make that leap. I thought 7.5 was the only number you could put at Nebraska right now. It's kind of interesting. It's not always that way, but I think this year right now 7.5 is about the only place you could put Nebraska, and it makes sense. But I will not budge from 8. I don't care. The only way I'd budge if somebody were to go down, somebody important, and in August, camp or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's where they should be, and I think that 8 is very possible. But there's now the other thing about that. I feel sort of it's very interesting to me, but I also feel a little uncomfortable. I don't have as good a read on this team as I usually do because I've seen so little of it, and I've seen so. For instance, I haven't seen a run period where I get assessed what's it look like inside run game. The offensive line against that defensive line that we wonder about. How's that look? There was a lot of years where I'd see a little bit of that, and you could kind of assess it. But now I don't know. I don't really know what the defense looks like. There's so many new parts in the back seven, and we can all make assumptions about Deshaun McCullough, Marquise Watson, Trent, and Andrew Marshall. And, we can all proceed with the notion that there'll be improvements. Williams, Winery. I don't know. I haven't seen them. I've seen them on film a little bit, but not at Nebraska. So I just don't. There's a lot I don't know, which makes me uncomfortable.
Steve Sipple, uncomfortable man from Husker Online, is joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Sip, I wanted to shift gears here a little bit and flip over to the Hendricks Training Complex and PBA and Fred Hoiberg. How has the post-Crown part of Fred's year gone in your eyes with the portal and late high school recruit addition?
Fred's haul? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today, how I'm going to work in a column. He's done it again, I think. I think he's created a team that's going to be very competitive. That's what it looks like to me. Now, how competitive is the question? It's going to be competitive, and that's good. I think that's enough. It seems like enough around here. The question is, can they, could they get to 5th in the league? Because the league's going to be really tough. In fact, I saw a national. Robin Washington, who's the beat writer, talked about how Nebraska had one early poll is 38. That's good, but that's also 12th in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's going to be really tough. It's going to be a very tough league. Probably Purdue, Purdue's already sort of being talked about as will be the number 1 team in the country. But if you're 38th right now in the country, and you happen to be in the Big Ten, that means you're 12th. So could they play their way up to 9th, and maybe the Big Ten would get 10 teams in or 11 teams in the NCAA tournament. I don't know, but I know what I see, and I'm kind of amazed. He did it. He pulled it off. I was very skeptical going into this round of portal acquisitions, and I like what they did a lot. I mean, I don't. It doesn't look like Kentucky. It won't look like Auburn, but it will look like enough to compete night in and night out. Big Ten.
It feels like they got a bunch of guys that could shoot, which is what I thought Fred was going to get when he arrived. I mean, I thought he was going to have this incredible offense. He's known as an offensive guru, and I think he tried to do it. get guys that, 5-man out type offense. Everybody can pass, everybody can shoot. And we didn't get that for the first 4 years or so. And then we got Tamanaga. We got it for 1 year. And then this past year, they were not a very good shooting team until they were at the end, and they started to shoot well, and they win the Vegas Classic, whatever that thing was.
The Crown.
Yeah, the Crown.
I thought they had. I mean, Bryce obviously could shoot. Sam can shoot. Sam didn't shoot it as well as you'd think he would. I still consider Sam a good shooter. Estesian's a good shooter. Gary has his moments. You had a guy on the bench who's a very good shooter.
Cale Jacobson's a good shooter. The rest of his game is not quite.
But he didn't play. You got to play.
I get
shoot.
that, but I mean, in the
Crown, he did. He was great.
Season. Yeah,
heck, he was the best point guard that I saw all season. Cale Jacobson.
No, but yeah, I get what you're saying, Tom. I thought, but they did have a few shooters this year, and I think they did upgrade that way. But just across the board, I don't have all the names in front of me. I love getting Jamarcus Lawrence back, like pairing him with that kid from St. Thomas in the backcourt.
Yeah,
I think the
Blue.
Court, then Blue, and then you can bring Sam off the bench and Estesian off the bench probably first, maybe. They added a good big. You're going to get Rink back. A good big. I think he's a little probably better than I watched him. He's interesting. He's a different player than Andrew Morgan. He's a little more depth as a scorer.
Jared Garcia or Leo Curtis or the Oogie guy. The Oogie. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. He's got to be a big factor. He's got to be a big factor, and he will be. He's a little different than Andrew Morgan, but I see him in that type of role. I think Fred did overall a very good job of. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they look like.
Yeah,
I have a pretty good feel. I think they'll be, like I said, very competitive. There'll be a lot of close games, and they're going to have to close out. They're going to have to close out some, tough wins to get to where they want to go. That's kind of just the nature of the beast in that conference. But I think they have the type of team that's going to have our attention throughout the season.
Yep.
Ugnis Yarushevicius.
Ooh. Watch your mouth.
I've been practicing for whatever reason.
That's right, in the shower.
Sip, before we let you go, just let's touch a little bit on baseball and softball. It was the Jordy Ball show down in Baton Rouge. And you could say that because she was kind of the star of the whole thing. But that is a team that is kind of, the old saying, hitting on all cylinders right now. What are your thoughts on baseball and softball?
Well, Jordy Ball, it's just, when she came here, you remember, there was so much fanfare and the expectations were through the roof, and that always makes me a little uncomfortable. And what she's done is essentially surpassed them. She has surpassed what I expect. I didn't know she was so formidable at the plate.
Well, nobody did. She didn't even hit when she was at Oklahoma.
Yeah, she's like a force of nature in the circle and at the plate. I mean, she could be the first player in NCAA history to have 25 home runs and 25 wins. Okay, now the first player in NCAA history to have 25 homers. I think she's got 25 wins.
Yeah, she got win number 25 today.
All right, so now I think she's 2 away in the homer category. She'd be the first one to do it. I applaud Rhonda. Again, it's the same kind of conversation. It's one thing to get a player like Jordy. It's another to make it work. And they've made it work at a very high level. I think they caught a little break with LSU, not struggling a little bit in that regional. But the other thing that sort of gets lost is they had 25 run rule wins. 25.
That's crazy.
Rule. Yeah, it's really crazy. So yeah, I tip my cap. I've always been a big fan of Rhonda. Always. I mean, I covered her back in the day. I mean, going back in the late 90s. And, I've ventured away from it and I've kind of lost touch with her. But I think she's basically the same person then that she is now. She's a great, great coach. And I thought a great person. So I'm happy for her. And she went through a struggle. She went through a tough situation a few years ago. I'd love to see coaches weather that sort of thing because they're in a tough profession. And here we are. Baseball, looks like they're going to have an 8 seed and play Michigan State on Tuesday. They won 6. Nebraska won 6 of its last 7 series. I mean, they started playing pretty well. 8 isn't where you want to be. I mean, I don't want to pretend like this is where Nebraska baseball wants to be at all. It doesn't. And I always feel kind of weird about, like, when Sean, my partner, says, "Hey, man, they got in the Big Ten tournament." I'm just like, why would that be something that should be celebrated in any way? I mean,
no, a lot of people picked them to win the league.
Right. That's in my mind. I'm just going to be very blunt here. It's not an accomplishment. Okay.
No.
It's not. So I don't like pretending that it is, and I just won't do it. I just won't engage that kind of discourse. They should be in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
I'm not saying every year, but most years.
We love your stuff. We love reading your stuff. We love your radio show. We love you. You're the best.
Well, I love you guys too. And I'm glad we made this work, and we'll do it again. I promise.
Well, we're off for the rest of the summer. We come back August 1st. You're going to be our first guest. Set up camp.
Okay, I will. Now I'm going to hold you to that. Okay.
Oh, well,
absolutely. It's done.
We're going to hold you to. You're the big star.
Yeah.
We're just a couple of knuckleheads with a radio show on Sunday night. So we can't wait for you to be back.
All right.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
there he is, Stephen M. Sipple, talking a little Husker football, little Husker baseball, softball.
And basketball.
Would you say that Jordy Ball, she's the best athlete since blah, male or female, at the University of Nebraska? Who's been better than Jordy Ball as an athlete? I'm sure there's some track or bowling star, but I mean, of the big sports, the marquee sports, baseball, football, basketball.
I mean, pure athletic ability. I mean, Isaiah Roby.
Yeah.
Insane. I mean, granted, it's
no, but he didn't have the stats. I mean, wasn't Big Ten Player of the Year and Pitcher of the Year.
There's a difference between the best athlete.
No,
and the best
I'm just
player.
saying accomplishments, athlete, all of it. When you lay the resume out there, who's got a better resume than Jordy Ball?
In the last 20 years, no one. I mean, you can go back to Heisman Trophy winners, and the guy that should have won the Heisman in '95 and Tommy Frazier. But
I mean, you might have to go that far back, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She's that good.
Yeah.
And she's only been here a year, really, because she was here last year and she got hurt, in the first game?
Yeah.
I'm almost thinking that was a blessing for her in some ways. She kind of got to relax, take care of an injury, regroup, and come back.
The one thing that the coaches at the USHL level, the Lincoln Stars and Omaha Lancers, Waterloo Blackhawks, all those teams, the coaches tell the kids, start college as late as you can. It's going to extend your career. And, taking a redshirt year, if you have an injury that sets you back a year, it's not necessarily a complete loss. Yeah. It may be a benefit to you later.
I think it was a benefit for her.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, come back after this. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind.
experience. Huh. I guess that means they're really old.
They're going to make him do this till he's 90.
Here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
A few minutes before the top of the hour, Husker Rewind, Tom Stevens, Mike Melby. At the top of the hour, Lance Harvell, Nebraska baseball assistant. Nebraska an 8 seed in the Big Ten tournament. They play Tuesday against Michigan State, who is a 12 seed. And then it's not the winner will be decided or who they play next will be decided later. They move on. They play Oregon on Friday. So they only play 2 games potentially in the Big Ten tournament. I don't really understand it. It's a round robin and there's pods and I don't really get it. But if you're a top seed, which Oregon is, all you have to do is basically win 1 game and you're headed toward the championship.
Well, yeah, you're in the semifinals.
Yep. So I don't like it. I don't know much about it, but I don't like it. Maybe after the tournament's played, I'll say, well, that's the best Big Ten tournament ever. Maybe I'll say that.
Probably won't. Breaking news. The Jack Mitchell softball experience picked up a win today.
Oh,
and
nice. What were
breaking
his
news?
Was he Jordy Ball good? Like
Jack
5 for 5?
Mitchell got his first hit ever.
First hit of his softball career?
Yes.
That's not true.
Caleb Henry hit a grand slam. So
Caleb's really good.
Yeah.
He's a good athlete. Well, congratulations to the Jack Mitchell softball experience. They won. He had his first hit ever, apparently.
Yeah,
today.
that's what I'm reading here.
I was thinking about what Andy Staples said in his talk with both Sean Callahan and Stephen M. Sipple, that if Nebraska just wins the games that they should win, they'll win 8. And I thought, let's try that experiment on the air. If Nebraska just wins the games that they should, that's 8 wins. Okay, Cincinnati in Kansas City, that's basically a home game. I guess Cincinnati's got a very good quarterback, but they'll win that game. They'll win the Akron game. They'll win the Houston Christian game. I think we can all agree that they will. They're 3-0, right?
No. I'll give them 2-1. I will not give them 3-0. That Cincinnati game is not a guaranteed win.
They should win it, right? Would you agree that they should win that game?
Oh, theoretically, yeah.
Okay, well,
until they do, I'm sorry. That's
the topic is that they should win it. I mean, I know we do that every year, that they should win a game and then they don't win the game. But this is what Andy Staples said to Stephen M. Sipple. He said, if they win the games that they should win, they'll win 8. And that's not a direct quote, but that's basically what he said. Then they play Michigan and Michigan State at home. I think those games, they split. They lose to Michigan. They beat Michigan State. I think it's possible they could beat Michigan. I don't think they will. So that's 4-1. They're 4-1. Then they're at Maryland and at Minnesota. I think they split those 2 games. I think they should split those 2 games. They potentially could win both those games. But I think they should split those 2 games at this point. So that means they're 5-2. Then they have Northwestern and USC both at home, both very winnable games. But I'm going to say they split those games, that they win the Northwestern game and that they split and lose to USC. So that makes them 6-3. Then they finish the season with a pretty tough schedule at UCLA, at Penn State, and Iowa at home. Now, the bad loss last year, according to Andy Staples, was losing to UCLA at home. They lost that game 27-20. You shouldn't have lost to UCLA. They were not a very good football team. I don't expect them to be great this year either. So I think they should beat UCLA, lose to Penn State, and then it's iffy. They should beat Iowa at home. They should have beat them last year on the road. Will they? I don't know. But if they do what they should do, that's 8-4. Beat Iowa, beat UCLA. At the end of the year, you're 8-4. And if you pull off a couple upsets, if you say you win the game versus Michigan at home, say you go to Minnesota and win that game, that's 10-2, right? Or maybe you win one more. Maybe you beat USC at home. That's 11-1. I know I did this last year on this very show, and I looked ridiculous.
You went from, I'm thinking, man, if they could just get to 6. Before the show started, you were like, if they could just get to 6.
I'm not doing that.
By the time that segment ended, you're like, we're going 10-2.
I think it's 8-4. If they win the games they should win, they're 8-4. You think that's crazy? That's
no,
what
I
Steve
don't think
said.
it's crazy. And looking at it, though, the should wins, I don't know that they should. I don't know that they're going to be favored in 8 games.
I bet they will be, at least in
Depending on that first game. They lose that first game.
They're picked to win. Vegas has them at 7-5. There's only a couple of teams on their schedule that are picked to win 8 or 9.
I don't know. It's all about the first game. It's all about the first game.
Yeah, you got to beat Cincinnati. If they lose that Cincinnati game, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
Because that's basically a home game. Lance Harvell, Nebraska assistant baseball coach, is coming up next. It's Husker Rewind. More on the way.
Have you been to Momo Pizzeria lately?
Ramir Johnson, the local boy, the Harlan native, punches it in for Nebraska, and they strike first.
Here comes the serve. Straight ahead, past Schumacher. Set in the middle, Schmeck out of bounds. We're done. Huskers win. Golly, grandkids. Nebraska sweeps Wisconsin on the road, no less.
And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
Line drive towards second. Caden Grumbaugh there. He squeezes the line drive. And on a night filled with emotion, honoring our leader, Greg Sharp, with his eyes on the diamond and his hands on our shoulders, Nebraska takes down 16th ranked Vanderbilt 6-4. Sharpie, that one is for you.
Now, here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Husker Rewind. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. Nebraska baseball completes the series win versus Purdue and West Lafayette over the weekend. Actually played Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And he's back in town. Lance Harvell, our next guest, Nebraska baseball assistant, at his son's soccer game. Are they winning?
They're winning, yeah. I think, let's see, 4-1 now. And
nice.
Yeah, my son had a nice little cross court winner into the net for goal number 3 a few minutes ago. It's pretty windy out right now. It's like 25-mile-an-hour winds. So
Oh man!
Sit in the car. Luckily, I got a spot where I can see the game. Make that. I'm sorry. Did I say 5-1? Make that 6-1. Whatever
How many goals does your son have so far?
In this game?
Yeah.
Just one.
Just one.
So far.
Just one. Well, you got to celebrate that. You can't say after the game. What's his name?
Well, Bodie.
You can't say Bodie. Only one goal. What's going on? You can't do that.
Yeah. Well, he scored it as I was trying to escape the wind so I could hop on the phone with you guys.
Yeah.
And I was literally walking right behind the net when he when he scored. So right there, the only person with a better view was the goalie.
Yeah, I played golf in 50-mile-an-hour winds this weekend in a tournament. It was not fun. Yeah, I don't know what the wind was like in West Lafayette, if it was blowing out, but you scored a lot of runs on Saturday, 14-2. You said it's kind of nice it's nice to watch a blowout. Your son's in a blowout right now in soccer. That's a big blowout. Don't you enjoy the blowouts more in baseball, especially if you're in the winning side?
It certainly makes it a lot less stressful for everybody, depending on which side of it you're on. But yeah, when you're on the good side of it, for sure. And for a while there, it was like every game we were taken down to the final inning, the final out. We had a little knack there for the walk-off wins. And those were a little stressful. And we had one of those, a couple close games. First game at Purdue, and then we were on the wrong side of it on Friday, but bounced back in a big way. Yesterday, and didn't leave any doubt.
Yeah, you were down. Was it on? I think it was Friday. 8-0. Is that the best comeback you've been a part of, or has there been a better one?
I think that was one of them. I think I was involved in a game where we were down 9 going into the 9th, and we came back and won. But that would be, that was in junior college. As far as like a, maybe a little bit more meaningful game. That was one of the best I've ever been a part of. And coming back down 8 and just completely taking the momentum and then taking the game over, in short order. 'Cause that thing was going sideways in a hurry. And, for our guys to just bounce back like that, it was pretty fun to watch and be a part of.
Nebraska assistant baseball coach Lance Harvell is joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and text line. Coach, the Big Ten baseball tournament this year the Big Ten decided to make it a pod type tournament. Everybody's guaranteed 2 games, but only 4 teams come out of the pods. Essentially, seeds 5 through 12 must win both games. I despise this format, especially with you guys having the success that you did last year in the tournament, coming through the losers bracket. To me, that's part of the specialness of college baseball. What are your thoughts on the format, and what are your thoughts going into the weekend?
Or are you allowed to talk about it?
Nobody told me I can't. But I've been involved in conference tournaments that have done it all different kind of ways. And so it really, again, it's a matter of perspective. I'm sure if you're finishing as one of the top 4 seeds in the tournament, you love it because it's designed to protect your best teams, and if you're not one of those teams, now it's like, well, maybe you don't feel like you have as much of a fighting chance as you would in a double elimination. I don't know. That's people are going to look at it different ways. For us, we've kind of had the mentality here in the last 6 weeks of like a postseason type win or go home almost mentality with our guys and how we've just kind of approached the game. And so it doesn't really matter for us right now, just because we've been playing this way, like in a must win. Like every game is a must win for a while now. And so it doesn't just go out and it doesn't matter if it's the 12 seed or the 1 seed. We're going to see both. We're going to see the best team in the conference and the team the last team to get in. And it doesn't really matter. And part of the beauty of it too is that Michigan State is the 12 seed, and they had to, walk off, win in walk-off fashion to get in to earn that 12 seed and earn their spot. And people might sit there and say, oh, well, it's the quote unquote, they're the last team to get in, or there should be any. Well, the guy we're going to face, their Friday night guy, is a semifinalist for the Golden Spike. I mean, he's one of the best pitchers in the country. And so it's like, there's no easy games. It doesn't matter what the seed, that number next to your name in the tournament is. There's no easy ones. And so we've all kind of been a part of whatever the format may be. We've been a part of teams and games and conference tournaments that you never know what's going to happen.
Right. Nebraska baseball assistant Lance Harvell is our guest. You said you've been in kind of must-win mode for the last 6 weeks. It's obviously paid off. You won 6 of the last 7 series and played some really good baseball, especially when the pressure was on and you had to win that, Sunday game or Saturday game to win the series. I'm sure you try to convince your players that that's the attitude they should always have. But when you're really in that situation, it's probably easier to coach in some ways, right? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's different. Just the mentality is just different. And it's one thing to say it, but the kids, I think they really buy into it and believe it when they can feel the sense of urgency. It's one thing to just tell them. I mean, that's always been a message of ours is winners move with a sense of urgency. People that play the game aggressively, they move with a sense of urgency. Everything that they do, there's a purpose to it. There's intent behind it, and there's urgency there. And once we kind of got in this mode, I think our guys really started to understand that, and what that needed to look like. And we haven't been perfect, in doing that all the time, but we've definitely had a different mindset, in the last, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And like you said, it showed in how we finished out and how we played, 6 of our last 7, I think 7 of our last 8 series going back to that Oregon State series. And so we've played some good baseball, and that was the message after the game yesterday is look, did we end up with the season that we wanted at the end of the, it's all said and done. Look at the body of work going into the postseason now. Did we end up with the season we wanted? Absolutely not. I don't know that anybody's really happy with it, but when you look at what we've done, here in the last 2 months, especially with how we started, we've played some pretty good baseball and turned the tide a little bit for our season and how we finish this thing. And that's what we told them, after the game. It's like, now it's the task at hand. Go win the tournament. And we know there's a lot of guys in that circle that know what it feels like to be in that must-win scenario and conference tournament time. There's a lot of guys that were, in that dog pile, somewhere at the bottom, in the middle, I don't know what layer they were on, but there's a lot of guys that were in that dog pile last year and know how rewarding that feeling is. Yeah. And so we told them, like, we have what it takes to go win the tournament, and I guess one of the good things about the format is I think you're really still only going to play 4 games, I think, maximum. Last year we had to play 6 because we dropped the first game and had to go win 5 straight. But I think if I've read the bracket, I think you still only play 4, even if you make it all the way through. Don't quote me on that. Somebody told me that, and I took it at face value. So that could be, a good thing too, because those can get hard sometimes too, where you get to you make it all through. Maybe you got to work through a loser's bracket, sometimes, and now you're doing some things that putting guys in positions that they haven't been in all year. I was in a conference tournament championship game one time, and we were basically down to scraping the bottom of the barrel on the pitching staff because we had used everybody just to get there, and our closer was maybe the one guy that had thrown the fewest amount of innings in the tournament, and we ended up starting him in the championship game and put him in a role that he just hadn't been in all year and wasn't accustomed to. And he did great. I think he went 5 strong innings for us, whatever, but throwing 100 pitches was not, that wasn't his deal, and starting a game was not his deal. So that's another thing too, just kind of looking at the gamesmanship part of it and the strategy part of it is maybe only playing 4. Everybody's used to playing 4 games in some form or fashion throughout a week. And maybe you won't have some of those guys that are being thrust into a position or something that they're just not used to being in. Now, sometimes you can catch lightning in a bottle, and that makes it fun too. So again, it's just a matter of how you look at it.
Nebraska baseball assistant coach Lance Harvell joining us on the Summit Lawns Talk and Text line. Coach, I know you were busy Friday, Saturday, but did you get an opportunity to watch any of Nebraska softball today? And what are your thoughts? Does the momentum from what they did kind of trickle into, I mean, I know there's got to be some conversations between baseball and softball players. Is it one of those where, hey, they just did it and now it's our turn? Does that actually take place?
Yeah, we share that Gordon, the indoor hitting facility there with them. So yeah, maybe we'll get a little magic rub off or something tomorrow if they're back and in there working out. But I did not get a chance to. I was following the game. I did not get a chance to sit down and watch it. I really kind of took advantage of having a day that I don't normally get to have either during the spring or
well
even
earned
in the summer. Having a Sunday, so we went to church, and then I was in the backyard playing baseball, throwing BP, zipping kids around on the zip line we have in the backyard there, and playing referee quite a bit too with 3 kiddos running around. So they got some much needed daddy time. I got some much needed time with the kids today. So I didn't get to lock in on it, but I saw that they won. I mean, just awesome.
What do you make of what Jordy Ball is doing this year with 25 wins in the circle and 23 home runs, a program record at the plate, and hitting something like 468? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see if how she does on maybe throwing overhand that much. Maybe she can come get on the hill for us. At some point. But I mean, what do you make of it? Nobody's maybe a handful of players ever have done it. Was that the thing?
She's one of 4 that have won 20 and hit 20 homers.
And hit 20. Yeah.
And she's I got to check the numbers again. She might be the first in history to go 23 plus for both.
Mm-hmm.
It's astronomical. We want so bad 2 more home runs. Get the 25-25.
Yeah.
So,
geez, Jordy, just hey, if you got a chance, Jordy, just knock that out, please.
What's the best pitcher you've ever coached as far as being a hitter as well?
Oh, the best
Spencer?
pitcher? Well, I mean, Schwellenbach. Yeah, you got to say Schwelly, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But
he wasn't really a pitcher until later in his career.
Yeah. Well, he was. I mean, he was always a two-way. It just was
more of a closer.
Injuries and everything kind of just limited his availability on the mound at times. But I would say, probably far and away the best one that I've had. The only other one I can even think of off the top of my head was another guy that ended up making it to the big leagues, and I think is still playing. He might be on the IL right now. Brooks Raley, who I coach. I was still just a pup. I was a GA just starting out back at A&M with Coach Childress. But Brooks Raley was a true two-way player for us, and he ended up making it to the big leagues as like a left-handed reliever. But those 2 come to mind right off the top.
I want to talk to you about the Major League Baseball draft a little bit as it pertains to Nebraska, because you have several guys that are pretty good. Mason McConaughey, I mean, he could come back to Nebraska. He's only a junior or get drafted. Luke Broderick is out there. Case Sanderson, Dylan Carey. They're all underclassmen. What are those conversations like with players who have, who could come back, but it could also get drafted? Do you encourage them to go to the big leagues or come back?
Yeah, I mean, our stance on it is just to let everybody just kind of be open about it. Like, we're not trying to, play goalie on anybody's dreams of professional baseball. We're not trying to hold you back from something, but we also want to make sure you're making a good decision, and if it's something where you're going to be drafted in the top 3 rounds or something, or maybe somebody's going to pay over slot and it's going to be life-changing money, then by all means, go do it. But everybody's situation is a little bit different. And so it's really case by case with those conversations and how they go. We just like to stay updated on guys and what they're hearing and what they're saying. And we get the other side of it too, because we talk to the scouts that are looking at them and interested in them. But it's going to be pretty interesting this summer because, like the guys that you mentioned, you never know. Like it just, everybody may just kind of say, "Oh, McConaughey, this is his draft year and he got hurt. Well, he'll be back." Well, he might not, because it just takes one team. It just takes one scout and one guy that liked him enough, to draft him and give him enough money or draft him high enough to get him to come out, because of the body of work that he had before he got hurt. And you never know, I mean, then there's guys that, Josh Caron, for instance, last year, he might've been, like a 7 to 10 round grade, going into the tournament last year, and then did what he did in the Big Ten tournament. That might've increased his stock, 3 or 4 rounds. And so you got guys that could just kind of finish with a flurry here and get hot. And all of a sudden, their draft stock changes and their whole situation changes, which again, that changes our whole situation. It's a tricky deal just trying to manage, the roster with the personnel, just in terms of recruiting you got the draft to worry about. And here's the biggest thing with it. It's not so much the draft. I mean, they've moved it back. But those kids have, even if you get drafted, you have until August to even make the decision if you're going to sign or go back to school. And so, there's a lot of times we're kind of sweating it out, just kind of waiting in limbo because, okay, do we need to try to replace that guy? Is he coming back? Is he leaving? What's going on? And what are we going to do if he doesn't? It could be a tricky deal trying to just make sure, and everybody's got to deal with it. But it's just, Bodie just chipped it in for another goal. Sorry.
Nice. Way to go, Bodie. He can have seconds tonight for sure. Whatever he wants.
Hey, Lance, Brooks Raley is still playing. He's with the Mets. He's on the 60-day injury list.
Okay, I thought I saw that. Yeah, I knew he was with the Mets, and I thought I saw a couple of weeks ago that he was maybe got hurt or something like that. Must be getting old.
Coach,
36.
We always love talking to you. Thanks for your time. Good luck in the Big Ten tournament.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. There
Thanks,
he is.
Coach.
Lance Harvell, Nebraska baseball assistant. Bodie scored 2 goals tonight.
Yep.
His son. So you got to take him out for dinner, right? You got to take him out for pizza, whatever he wants.
Some ice cream.
Ice cream. Let's get the break. Come back with more. It's Husker Rewind. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. More on the way.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind. Jim White, PGA professional, great teacher, Nebraska Hall of Fame golfer. Talk to us in about 10 minutes or so about Scotty Scheffler's big win at the PGA. It really wasn't very interesting this week. I hate to sell it like that, but Scotty's kind of that way.
Yeah.
He's Tiger good. I'm not saying he's Tiger because nobody's Tiger until you're Tiger. Nobody's Jack until they're Jack. But he's on that trajectory right now. As I mentioned, he won the Byron Nelson and was really good in that. 31 under par, which is a PGA Tour record. And then he comes back and he wins the PGA. We were hoping, Jim, that it would be interesting. Was this a very interesting PGA championship?
Didn't appear like it was going to be until Scotty had a few hiccups on the front nine, and you weren't sure he was going to find his swing in time. And Rahm was playing good, so it got real interesting. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't. So
yeah,
typical.
It feels like he is becoming. I mean, some players are calling him the best iron player that they've ever seen. Would he rank in your top 5 of iron players in the history of the game?
Yeah, with what he's done the last couple of years, the number of times he's won. I mean, you're talking about only Tiger and Jack have won that many majors and tournaments before 30. So, and he's still got, a year and a half to go. So yeah, it was typical Scotty. I mean, I love his repetitive golf swing. Hits that same high cut with almost every shot. Yet he has worked the ball right to left when he needs to at times, but he plays very smart too. I mean, just the way he played the last 3 holes, just took double bogey just out of the equation on every hole. Just brilliant golf. I think he's got a great team around him, and he's got that mindset that it comes along very rarely, where he's a phenomenal competitor, and yet he doesn't really show it that much. But man, does he like to win, and that's evident in how many times he closes when he's in the lead. That's a phenomenal statistic. Was he 7 for 7 or 8 for 8 now?
Yeah, he's Tiger-esque in that way.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, and if he continues this for 3-4 more years, where he goes off and wins 6-7 times a year for 3 or 4 years, I mean, you're talking about third best player in history, potentially.
Yeah.
If he can keep rattling off a major every year for the next 4, 5, 6 years, I mean, yeah, he's in getting close to rarefied air, that's for sure.
Jim White joining us on the Summit Lawns Talking text line. PGA was played at Quail Hollow. Have you ever had an opportunity to play there?
I played it once, but it was so long ago, before you were born, probably. So,
I'm old. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've obviously added gobs of tee boxes and changed things around a lot. But I mean, it's an interesting golf course with the massive par 4s, and then you've got 2 drivable par 4s and one on each 9, and the par 5s are kind of gettable. So it's a tournament where you can see a lot of changes on the leaderboard, and Rahm certainly collapsed there at the end, and that's unfortunate, but that happens. You get a little bit off, and all of a sudden the pressure kind of gets to you, and you make mistakes, and they compound, and all of a sudden you go from second to whatever 7th or wherever finished. But that's major championship golf. I mean, the amount of pressure those guys are under on a golf course like that, and any major championship golf setup, it's so it's so difficult it's hard to explain to people how hard it is to make scores on a major championship course. And, the best players do it awfully well. And there's a few different names that snuck in there at the end, that Davis Riley and Poston and Harris English. He was was done for 3 hours and got to sit in there and finish second. That was pretty. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Too, so.
Yeah. What's your take on, because it was 7,600 yards, one of the longest in PGA Tour history. And they say, well, only the long hitters can win a tournament like that. Scotty Scheffler is certainly that. Harrison English isn't the longest hitter on tour. Bryson certainly is. What's your take on these golf courses that just get longer and longer and longer? Do you like it?
Well, since I'm getting shorter and shorter and shorter, I really don't. But I also don't have to play in those events anymore. So
yeah.
that's it's unfortunate. I mean, the equipment. I heard him say earlier in the broadcast, Andy North was like 17th in driving distance, and they asked him if he remembered how long that was, and it's like 250 some yards. I mean,
wow.
That's how much the equipment has advanced the yardage that people are hitting the golf ball. I mean, you're talking that wouldn't even, 300 is not in the top 17 anymore. So, then some of the carry distances that Rory and DeChambeau hit it were insane. I mean, but 190 mile an hour ball speed, 180 mile an hour ball speed, those are big numbers, and that equates to huge distance carries. And so they're still hitting relatively middle to short irons into some of these 460 to 480 yard holes. So to them it's just, can I drive it in the fairway? I think they really get penalized when they drive it in the rough when it's a long hole, because now they can't control the spin, and it's hard to figure out where to land the ball to keep it on the green.
Nebraska Hall of Fame golfer Jim White is our guest. I meant to ask you this last time we had you on. Scheffler wins this tournament. I think Rory won the Masters, so that's 2 PGA guys in a row. I kind of thought once we got into the majors, maybe some of the live guys would dominate, and you do see Bryson's name up there, but he was one of the few. Are you surprised there aren't more live guys doing well in these first couple PGA events?
A little bit. The fact that they're only playing 54 holes and might be a little bit of a factor. I mean, because nothing is more mentally grinding than a 72-hole major championship. So when you're not used to playing 4 competitive rounds in a row at that level, you can see where they could have a hiccup, more so than the PGA guys that are used to the 4-day grinds out there.
Would you like to see the tours come? I mean, I think it would be more interesting if you saw Jon Rahm, if you saw Bryson DeChambeau play against Rory and Scotty more often. There's got to be at some point an agreement between those 2 tours. Is that coming, do you think?
We heard rumors that it was getting close to having something, but I think the Live Tour is kind of here to stay, at least for the time being, and how they almost have to do a third kind of merger of certain events where they're 10 to 15 events are maybe eligible for both groups to play, but then you'd have to have huge purses, and which obviously they can find the money for these huge purses. So that could happen. I don't know. I mean, the schedules get so tight, every year you got Ryder Cup one year, President's Cup another year, you got the majors, you got the regular tournament sites that, would be offended if they weren't able to keep their spot. So I think it's become a little more difficult than I think they thought it was going to be, because you heard rumblings earlier this year that something was imminent, some agreement, but obviously that hasn't happened yet, and I haven't heard anything lately that it's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see over the winter what happens, if anything. Scotty
Scheffler's number 1 in the world. At the Byron Nelson, he shot 31 under par. He wins this by 5 shots, the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. Rory's number 2, but the space between them, how close is it in your mind?
well, between Rory and Scotty,
Yeah.
or between those two and the rest of the field. I think Scotty's just mentally been a little sharper, and his iron play. He's not as great a driver as the golf ball as Rory, but I think overall he hits more fairways, and he's a better iron player. So, and he's been a better putter. So I think there's a decent gap, and between those two and third, fourth, fifth, I don't know. I mean, you got Xander was hurt; he hasn't been able to get back to the form he was last year when he won 2 majors. So normally I'd put him in that category with Rory for sure. And so it'll be interesting these next 2 majors and see what happens the rest of the year. But boy, Scotty looks like he could be in for another 6-7 win season.
Yeah.
After what he did last year.
Yeah, I think it was Tiger that said if he putts well, you just can't beat him because he hits his iron so close to the pin that if he's putting, you're just not going to beat him. It feels like that right now. He's just so dominant. Of course, you're still working, doing the stuff at the Fairways of Lincoln. You're the pro there. Talk about what's going on at the Fairways of Lincoln.
Yeah, we're still, pushing our club bidding system, the PX3, which is, I think the best bidding system in golf. We do things that other bidders do not do, which is, kind of leverage match golf clubs. So we can take a club that you really like in your set and you want to, get a set of irons to match that driver. We know how to do that. And we do it better than anybody else. So we also do a lot of club repair out there too. So, and teaching. And if you haven't been to the facility, I think it's got the best practice facility of any of the public courses in town. I mean, we've got a pitching area. We've got a short game area where you can hit shots up to 120 or 30 yards. We've got a really nice putting green, and we got a good driving range. So, it's a great place to come out and practice and work on your game. And then if you need instruction, we've got 3 instructors out there, and we can fix you up.
Jim, we always appreciate your time. Thanks for it. Appreciate it.
Okay, Tom. Thanks for having me.
There you go.
Have a good night. All right.
The pro there at the Fairways of Lincoln, one of the best golf fitters. People don't realize when you change your grips, you change the weight in many cases, and Jim takes that into account with your swing speed, and it's really a science that he's he's patented it, and he's mastered it. He's really, really good at what he does at the Fairways of Lincoln. Let's get to break. Come back with one final segment. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind. More on the way.
You're listening to Mike Melby.
They're storming the floor. Tim Miles has punched our ticket, Husker fans. It's time to twerk. Let's go dancing.
On 1499.3 KLIN.
With Kent Pavelka there, thinking a little bit about Husker basketball. Leo Curtis, I'm excited about that get. Nice article in the Journal Star this morning about his high school path. He didn't start playing basketball until late. He was kind of a soccer kid, really talented athlete, but has just picked up basketball, went to a prep school in Massachusetts, averaged about 12 points a game. But this was a team that was just loaded with great players. I think he's going to have to figure out his post moves and getting pushed around in the Big Ten. But I think that's going to be a good ad, and I think he's going to fit Hoiberg's system with being he likes to have his bigs be able to pass and shoot. He fits that rink mass mold.
He can shoot. He was 42 out of 102.
Yeah,
so
he can really shoot. I mean, he had offers from a lot of different schools. I think the second highest ranked recruit in the Hoiberg, at the last 15 years, maybe ever, in the star system. For Nebraska basketball. So
behind Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce McGowan's obviously number one. He was a 5-star. And I know Glenn Watson was one of the higher ranked guys, but I think he surpassed the rank of Glenn Watson. So that's a nice pickup for Nebraska. Nebraska football, we had Steve Sipple in the first hour of Husker Online. He and Sean Callahan talked to a nice get, Matt Rule, talking about what's going on in the offseason for Nebraska football. He had some interesting things to say. This I found the most interesting. Why do you add a kicker and a punter? This is what Matt Rule said.
As we went down the path of winter into summer, John Hole had some soft tissue injuries. So Tristan had him last year. John had him this year. And, that left us with really one kicker. Went through the spring with Tristan and just kind of left out of this saying, let's make sure that we have elite competition and that we know that if the game's going to come down to snap, hold, kick, that, we're going to win the game. And so I think it was just really more of that, just the uncertainty and the competition of it. And so I have a lot of confidence in Tristan and John. But at the same time, the team requires that we address and make sure that we have the right thing there. And then, punting wise, as I talked about in the press conference, Eck wants to utilize the rugby style, wants to be able to go with someone who can punt right-footed and left-footed. And, we have a young man all ready to come. We haven't announced his name yet, but we would expect that he would be here on June 1st, getting ready to start workouts on June 2nd. And, Camden is still here as well. And so we have a depth. Johnny Hole can also punt. So but we're trying to make this really a strength for us moving forward.
I think I'm more curious about the punter addition that's yet to be announced. They say they've got their guy, an Australian punter, than I am the kicker addition. I was actually like the John Hole addition last year, and he became the kicker that really got hot. He made the long kick against Ohio State. Made like 7 of his last 8, something like that, to end the season. I thought he played well, kicked well, but then he got soft tissue injuries, as Matt Rule said. But with Mike Eckler, he wants to add a rugby-style kicker that can kick with both feet, both legs, and because you can use it in the college rules. The rugby style allows the punter to usually run up in some ways to the line of scrimmage and then punt it, and that allows your players to get downfield. And that's the decision that Mike Eckler basically made over Matt Rule. Matt Rule said, hey, this is your baby. You're one of the best special teams coordinators in the country. And he was statistically while at Tennessee. And I think that's the reason they made the move to go to a rugby style punter. But they've yet to announce the guy that's coming. And I haven't seen anything as of yet, but I think he'll be here Rule said he'll be here by June.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, there's a guy that I think I know who it is. I don't want to say his name out of fear somebody could potentially hear that clip and do whatever. But there's a gentleman that is exactly what Matt Rule described that entered the transfer portal a while ago.
Okay.
And he's an Australian punter. He's from the one system, the punting system from down under. And as soon as he went in the portal, I immediately was like, for what they're talking about, that's the guy.
There was a guy named Daniel Cerny. Remember, he was here for a while.
Yeah.
It didn't work out well. That was in the Scott Frost era, I believe, Daniel Cerny. He was from Australia, and they're known for punting. They're really good at it, that style of punting, but it didn't work out for Nebraska in that case. Not to say it won't work out this time. But that's something, special teams as a whole, Nebraska needs to get fixed in a dramatic way. Making kicks, having better punts, having better snaps, fielding the snaps, getting the ball down and the kick through the uprights. I mean, it seems like it should be easy because for a while under Bo Pelini, Nebraska was kicker U. They won so many close games, and that hasn't happened for a long time at Nebraska.
No, and the other thing, think about special teams when Bo Pelini was here. I remember the press conference. Bo was genuinely just really mad. And he said, you know what? I'm taking over punt returns because our punt returns suck.
Yeah. And they became very good at it.
And then DeMornay Pearsonell went,
it helps when you have DPE.
Well, granted, but look at what he did when Pelini was no longer here and no longer in charge of special teams. DPE was still good, but he was not great like he was with Pelini as the special teams coach, essentially.
All right. Matt Rule had a few other things to say to Steve Sipple and Sean Callahan. This is about adding players from the transfer portal. And it's not always straight line when you're talking to Matt Rule. He kind of has his own agenda, so he goes off in other directions because that's kind of who he is. But this is what he's saying about the transfer portal and adding players from it.
I tell our players, if you're a good player on this team and you've produced, you're going to get hit up in the portal every single time. Like, you should not be like, well, what's happening? Like, you're going to get hit up. And so a lot of our guys got hit up. We've allocated the resources as best we can. And so we didn't see a lot of need, or we didn't have a lot of resources left to go out and say, hey, let's go out and get a bunch of guys. Because I think we've tried to make sure we take care of the guys that we have here. And I don't think there was a ton of depth in the portal. And if you're in the portal right now, if a team's taking you right now, you basically are going there either to be a backup for if they're anticipating a long run, they're desperate, or you're kind of there as a guy for the following year. So I told some of our guys as they were getting hit up. So you're gonna go in the portal, you're gonna go on a visit, you're gonna show up somewhere June 1st. You're gonna be with your coaches for 3 or 4 weeks in June, learning the system for 3 or 4 weeks. You're gonna be on your own in July, and then you're gonna start in August. Like Sierra Wright's one of my favorite guys, one of the smartest football players I've ever been and been around. Tremendous talent. You look at the first 3 or 4 games, he only played 15 plays a game for us.
Yeah.
Because, we had Tommy, we had Malcolm, we had Marquise all established. Once Tommy got hurt, Sierra got a chance. It's really hard to go in the portal right now somewhere and be a starter in August. And so we didn't see many guys. We saw one player that we thought had a chance really to come in and help. Emmett's RB number 1, but thought help in that group. But as the economics start to happen, we're not going to also hurt our team by paying someone an exorbitant amount, significantly more than the guys that they're not starting above. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And so
interesting that he said that, basically referring to Sharmar Brown.
Yeah, he didn't say Marty Brown, but
no,
we know that's who he's talking about.
And there were teams
good for
like
him. He got his money.
Yeah, there were teams like Cal. He was talking about teams that sometimes pay above market value because they need a guy and they have a lot of money and there aren't a lot of guys out there, so they can spend a lot of money on one guy. Because California was in on it. He ended up going to Miami. But Nebraska probably could have gotten him. Apparently, coming home was not a big deal for Marty Brown because he's a Creighton prep kid, played there, and they thought they could maybe get him because he's from Nebraska and his parents could come see him, but that wasn't as important to him as maybe some money that he was able to get from Miami. Well, and you also don't want to tell Emmett that, hey, we're paying this guy $1 million more than what you're making.
Yeah. By the way, we still need you to continue to produce and be the starter.
Yeah. You're still the starter, but this guy's going to make $1 million more.
Yeah. But we can't pay you anymore. Yeah. So that's to me, that's almost more difficult than with a pro franchise.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? From the standpoint of you're going to be offering guys and bringing guys in, or guys are going to be demanding. There's no salary cap as of yet. I hope there is at some point. But you've got a limited, a finite amount of money that you can pay out every year. And if you've allocated the resources and you've got a guy, you're like, man, I would love to have this guy for depth to what Matt Rule was just talking about. You're not going to come in and start this year. You're going to be a guy that is going to be a depth player, or you're going to be for next year. Well, to get that guy to come to Nebraska or to whatever school, you've got to pay him more than the guy that's starting now.
Yeah.
That's not going to sit well.
That's not going to sit well, nor should you do it. Even if you had the money, even if you like, if Warren Buffett were to say, here's $1 billion, spend it wisely.
Yeah.
Kind of like Oregon has with Mr. Knight. I don't think it's a good idea to even if you have the money to break up your team that way. I think you still have to spend, even if you have a lot of money, to spend it wisely.
Well, and one of the telling things about whether or not a team is going to be good or bad is culture. And what we found out in an article written by Steve Sipple, who we had on in hour number 1, is that during the Pinstripe Bowl entire trip, there was not one member of the University of Nebraska football team or staff that was disciplined for anything. That is a great culture.
Yeah.
That is a culture that will win. Will they win 7 games, which is going to be or 8 games with a bowl win or whatever, which is an improvement over last year? Or do they shock the world, go 10-2, 11-1, and they're in the CFP? I don't know. All I know is that culture, I'm as proud of about hearing that than as you could be about anything that happened in the offseason.
And one of the ways I think that you have a good culture is when guys don't leave.
Yeah.
They had a few guys leave, but Grant Segrin went to Oklahoma State, and I think that he was talking about that.
Yeah,
we had
one guy.
We had one guy leave, and he would have been in the 2 deep.
Yep.
And they lost Dante Dowdell to Kentucky. He probably got a lot of money.
Yeah, he got paid.
But you can't necessarily pay him if you don't think he's starting over Emmett. Can you pay him more than? I mean, you have a bunch of mouths to feed. And I think we're in a dangerous time as far as how you handle athletes in this day and age. And I don't know that every school is going to do it right. The ones that do will win, I think, overall. The ones that don't will lose. This is Matt Rule talking about how crazy June is. They're having OTAs now. You can actually have organized practices in June with players, something you never used to be able to do. They're also having 7-on-7 camps with players. This is Matt Rule talking about a crazy June for Nebraska football, for the coaches and the players.
For the staff and coaches, like you ever seen when they torture people, they play they play the hood on their head and they play the hard rock, hard heavy metal. June is the craziest 23 days of the year for football for the staff, and not for me, for the staff, because it's like recruiting, player development, camps, and we refuse to slack anything off. Like, you're not going to come to our camp and get coached by the third tight end coach. You're going to get coached by Sam. You're going to get coached by Donnie. So we take our camps very seriously. For our players, it's a ton of lifting and running. So the focus of lifting in the off season starts to move into a little bit more running now. And then we'll do 3 football skill specific / walkthrough type stuff. So the rules are different now. So we'll do 3 OTA style workouts a week that are within rules.
Okay.
That'll be somewhat new for us. We've done a smaller version. We'll amplify it this year. And we'll do that really for the first 3 weeks. Then it goes dead on June 23rd. We might do it for 2 more days that week.
Okay.
And then I'll cut the coaches loose. And I've always wanted the coaches to be away for the month of July.
I have a feeling Matt Rule works his coaches really, really hard, and he expects a lot from them. I like this 7-on-7 idea. I think we've got a really cool city, but you hear it time and time again from recruits that come and visit. Man, I can't believe it. The stadium was going to be full of corn. I thought cows were going to be running around everywhere. This is actually a cool downtown, cool stadium, a lot to do, bigger city than I thought. How do you get players here other than, a recruiting visit, 7-on-7 camps. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. Make those camps big. Adidas is big enough or good enough where you should be able to get a lot of the better names from the region, and then you just build. Hopefully with a bunch of 4 and 5 stars, and you get a few of those.
Well, and Matt Rule's MO in the past and even here so far is he grabs guys and offers guys that came to camp. They weren't a 5-star.
Yeah.
He offered guys, and we have guys on the roster right now that had no stars that were simply track guys. And he went, I can make you a football player to where you can make a lot of money someday.
And he talks about the experience of like when he was at Baylor, this kid was like 5'4". And then he's at Nebraska. The same kid visits. He's 6'6", 300. And he's got this picture that he shows Rule of when he was, at Baylor at the camp 10 years earlier or 5 years earlier, whatever it was. And he's just grown into this mountain of a man. He says, those are my favorite stories.
Yeah.
When you've had a kid early on at camp and you see them maybe 2 or 3 times and progressively get bigger and stronger and faster. And that kid who you thought, oh yeah, that's a pipe dream that you're ever going to play football at this level actually becomes that. And you've been there the whole time kind of coaching him.
Yeah.
And that's what he loves to do. I mean, some coaches just want a little downtime. They don't want, I think what a lot of the NFL coaches hate about college is the nonstop recruiting that goes on.
Yeah.
Every day is draft day.
Well, and to that extent, to me, the most important person in the entire football complex, more than any player, more than any coach, more than anybody, is Pat Stewart, the general manager.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy that has the most chaotic day, and the month of July off. No, not for him.
No,
he is 24/7, 365 to do what needs to be done to be successful in this current landscape of college football.
I'm going to be interested to see how he fits because
so
now more
far-
than ever. I mean, he's got to find, the kids that not only fit, but do they fit financially? And do they fit this team? And he comes from the New England system where that's how they lived. They would sometimes trade away their first and second day draft picks and get the Tom Brady's in the 5th round.
Well, that's
they
the
would
whole
find
thing.
value. They would find value. And that's what Nebraska needs to do. That's what Tom Osborne did with the walk-on program.
We don't know much about general managers in college football yet. Okay. It's in its infancy. But if I'm going to have a guy that's going to start building the road to pave the path that is ultimately going to be what a successful GM looks like, I can't think of a better guy than Pat Stewart. From everything that I have read on the guy and everything that he's done in his career so far,
He's going to be really important. I mean, they've tried this before. Remember Billy Devaney? That was kind of a joke. I mean, Mike Riley tried Billy Devaney.
Yeah.
And he was with the Chargers for a while, and he had some cred, but he doesn't feel like a Pat Stewart, like the new age guy, like the GM.
and he's a
that you
new
need.
age guy that is an old school guy.
Yeah.
Like he gets everything.
Anytime you're around Bill Belichick for that long, I'm guessing you're going to learn something because he's pretty good. So are you, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
But we're leaving. We're leaving for the summer.
Yep.
You're going to do.
I'm going to go racing.
You're going to go racing. I'm going to go golfing, and we'll meet back here August 1st. Have a great weekend or the rest of it. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
See ya.
The legendary Steve Miller Band.